Hello students and welcome again to Legacy IS Academy. Here we are going to continue our current affairs revision series and we'll be looking at the Indian economic current affairs for September 2024. So as you may already be aware that this particular series has already started from the 21st of February. So you have started with Indian economy, polity and other subjects will also be coming up. So make sure you go through that. Over here we will be revising the entire year's current affairs, which is going to be absolutely necessary for your prelims 2025 paper. All the important topic of the last 1 year will be covered, which will be subject wise for the prelims, and of course you will also be given the content, the brief content for this particular classes as well. So let's get started with your Indian economy current affairs for 2024. So what all we'll cover here is the very first thing, that is the middle income trap. What is it? What are the criteria for it, so on and so forth. Then you have financial inclusion and 10 years of PMJDY. So what is PMJDY? Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which was brought in 2015. Now it has completed its 10 years. The next thing we look at the 50 years of India's microfinance. So again, the microfinance is also nothing but a part of this particular topic only. So we'll see that. Then you have the National Industrial Corridor Development Program. So we will see what this corridor development plan is all about, what all are the routes incorporated, when did it start first, so on and so forth. Then Vadhavan Port and PM E-Drive scheme is what we look at. The ports and infrastructure things are very important. Last year if you look at the paper, too many questions on infrastructure were there. Not too many, but of course 2-3 questions on that was there, which is quite a big number considering the topic size is quite less. Now moving ahead, we will talk about financialization. So what is this term? We should know that. Then we will look at the Bhaskar initiative for India's startup ecosystem, what this initiative is all about. Then you have ULI, that is Unified Lending Interface. Unified Lending Interface. We'll also look at perpetual bonds. So you might have studied about bonds, different bond, index bonds, masala bonds of India. We'll look at what these perpetual bonds are. Then we'll look at the windfall tax, very interesting, and last but not the least, the spice scheme, with respect to which spice it is, that is important. We'll look at that as well. So before we go into the prelim specific study for this economy in September 2024, let's look at one important thing which I want to tell you about is Impact 2025, that is the intensive mains practice and content training. So once you clear prelims, there is hardly any time. In fact, immediately after given prelims, there is almost less than, in fact, 3 months. So what you have to do is, at that period of time, revise and write answers and improve on it. That becomes utmost importance. Now that is taken care by Impact 2025, in which there will be comprehensive answer writing practice, content enrichment. So in answer writing practice, you will be told how to write the answer, what to do, what not to do, do's and don'ts, everything. At the same time, content enrichment sessions will be there, which will not just tell you how to write answers, but what content should be included in that and how to make it better so that you add value to your answer and get those extra marks. Personalized feedback will be given. I think this is the most important part of this particular program. Why? Because when you get the papers check, it's just that do this, do that. Now it is very generic in nature. However, here you will be getting personalized feedback as well as mentorship, probably the most important part of this. Of course, it will cover all your GS plus essay paper. It will be done over a period of 50 plus hours of classes, which will be done in around 34 sessions. So make sure you are on it. So without further ado, let's get started with the very first topic for September 2024 current affairs of Indian economy, that is the middle income trap. So what is the middle income trap? Now basically, of course, it will be something like that wherein middle income is getting trapped, right? So what is it? It is defined by World Bank. What World Bank says is there are certain economies which are growing very fast. Now India and other South Asian economies are growing quite fast. We are very fast growing economies as compared to the economies of the Western world, the first world, the developed countries, right? But it also postulates that though they are growing fast, it is not going to overshoot or go beyond the big economies of the world, that is USA and China. Or China, just forget China, let's talk about the first world only. It will not go beyond beyond USA also. Why? Because at one point of time its growth, its improvement, its increment will get stagnated. So it released a report known as the World Development Report 2024, in which it talked about the middle income trap, according to which what happens is countries, as I said, which includes India, they run the risk of this particular middle income trap. And what is this trap all about? This trap basically says that when your size of GDP is increasing, so your per capita income, gross national income will increase, but it will get stagnated. Beyond a particular limit, this will not increase. That means our efficiency cannot increase beyond a further limit, is what the middle income trap is saying. Now, there are different types of middle income trap. There is middle income trap countries, of course, in general. There is lower middle income trap countries and upper middle income countries. So, what is this lower, middle and upper income, which we'll see, income countries? So first things first, middle income countries are those in which the per capita gross national income is between $1,135 to $13,846. You don't have to remember the exact number, but at least know that it is in 1,000, close to 1,000, it is close to 14,000. It is in double digit of thousands of dollars. Right? Now this can be divided into lower middle income countries and upper middle income countries. So lower will of course start from here and end at around 4,400, and upper will start from this 4,466 and go up to the number 13,846. So these are the two ranges. Don't need to remember them exactly, but tentatively you should know where these countries lie. Right? Now, talking about the middle income trap, coined by World Bank, as I said in its report, an East Asian Renaissance ideas for economic growth. So maybe the report they don't ask because it's quite old, but who has coined it? It's the World Bank. That you should be knowing here. So what is it? It is a situation wherein rapidly growing economy, as I said, we are very fast growing economy, India and other South Asian nations. Now all these rapidly growing economies are there, they may get stagnated, they may stagnate at one particular point of time and fail to graduate into ranks of high income countries. So we may not graduate into high income countries. But let's see, I think India is on track to defy that. The simple reason being the population is increasing, fair enough, but the efficiency, productivity is also increasing, and the service sector is also there, which has a very high efficiency. So it is possible that we will beat this middle income trap. Now coming on to the second news, that is 10 years of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. So what was Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana? It was brought in for financial inclusion, and under this scheme the bank accounts of people were opened so as to include them in the financial domain. So for every Indian, and it was present for every Indian, there was no criteria of age, job, this, that, nothing. For each and every Indian, you were opening the bank accounts. You were opening the bank accounts, and these bank accounts were of zero deposits. You can open bank accounts with zero deposits as well, because you need not have any money to open the bank. But then if you don't have money, why this is required? So that you can link certain schemes, direct benefit transfer, this, that, everything can be done. And whatever does not mean you may not have any money also. You may have money saved at home, so instead save it at bank. That money comes into the market. India has an issue of very high saving. High saving is not an issue, but the problem is that is saved in the households. A lot part of it is saved in the household. So that should also come in the banking system. The government can also, let's say, come up with direct benefit transfer, wherein the amount is directly transferred to your bank account, so on and so forth. So for financial inclusion is what it was brought in. Now, of course, it was brought in by the Ministry of Finance, and under it the Department of Financial Services. Now it rests on 6 pillars. So what are these 6 pillars? You should know all of them. Universal access to banking services, pension scheme for unorganized sector, basic saving account with an overdraft facility of 10,000 to eligible adults. Now what is overdraft? Overdraft is it is as good as a loan. So I can take 10,000 rupees as a loan. Now if my salary comes, let's say 5,000 in that account, now my loan is considered only 5,000, interest is to be paid only in that 5,000 because the other 5,000 is saved in the same account. So that helps to lower the interest on the overdraft that I have taken. Then micro insurance facility is present. Financial literacy program was under that, so as to make people aware about the financial situations. For example, keeping 100 rupees with you at home, after 1 year if there is 10% inflation, its value will be equivalent to 90 rupees. Rather, if you would have put in the bank, your bank would have given you certain savings interest, fixed deposit interest, so on and so forth. And finally, creation of credit guarantee fund. These are the 6 pillars of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Next is the National Industrial Corridor Development Program. So 12 new industrial cities nodes under the National Industrial Corridor Program have been recently approved. Now what is this program all about? It began with the launch of Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor in 2007. So why are we doing this still? Because this is not yet complete and it is still ongoing. So we should know what this program is all about and what all areas or what all paths are there in it. So it seeks to create new industrial cities as smart cities. So it is going to create new industrial cities as smart cities. How is this logic going to work? Industrial, logistics, transportation, roads, etc. will pass through certain regions, and the cities through which it will pass, certain cities will be selected to convert them into smart cities with next generation technologies that is there to seemingly integrate all the technologies in it. Right. Of course, it is designed to accelerate the growth in the manufacturing sector and faster and rapid urbanization as well. Now, this is a very important map which you have to look at it. The industrial corridors that are planned are total 11 in number so far. So, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor, as I first said, then you have Amritsar Kolkata, Chennai Bengaluru, Vizag Chennai, so on and so forth. You can pause this video and go through all the 11 industrial corridors that is mentioned over here, and the same is linked over here in the map. So the first one was this Delhi to Mumbai, the second one is this one, then the third one is this one. So all the corridors are mentioned in this graph. Very important for your prelims exam. Moving on, the Vadhavan Airport. So our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, he inaugurated the Vadhavan Port in Maharashtra's Palghar. So remember, it is in Maharashtra, located near the Hanu town in Palghar. Maybe that amount of detail UPSC doesn't ask, but Maharashtra and at least Palghar you should know, and it will be established as the 13th major port. So presently 12 major ports are there, is what you should be knowing. Right. Now, this particular thing is to be constructed by Vadhavan Port Project Limited. So the name is also Vadhavan. It has to be constructed by Vadhavan Port Project Limited. Why is that so big? Simply because generally the company that let's say gets it done, gets it made or invests money, the name is given after that. You might see, let's say Delhi Airport GMR symbols, or GMR Airport also GMR symbols, because GMR was the client, its money was invested over there, right? So that becomes really important. Now, what are the major ports of India? You have Kandla, Mormugao, Mangaluru, Ennore, Chennai, Visakhapatnam, Paradeep, Kolkata, etc. These are some important major ports in India, plus Kochi and Tuticorin. So you should know this, and this will be the 13th major port. Now, what is the difference between major ports and minor ports? So the difference, of course, sizes you can talk about, but apart from that, major ports are administered directly by the central government, whereas non-major or minor ports fall under the ambit of the state governments. This is one major difference. The Major Port Authorities Act provides for all the rules and regulations for major ports, and the non-major ports are governed under the Indian Ports Act 1908. So if they say non-minor ports, non-major or minor, one and the same thing. They are governed by the Indian Ports Act of 1908. Now, next up is Pradhan Mantri E-Drive Scheme. So E here of course means electric, right? E here means electric. So what is this? This is by the Ministry of Heavy Industries. They have notified electric drive revolution in innovation vehicle enhancement. So basically drive acronym is enhanced by drive revolution in innovation vehicle enhancement, E-Drive. So let's see what it is all about. It is talking about faster. Expedite means faster. So it is talking about expediting the adoption of electric vehicles, that is EV means making the adoption of electric vehicles faster, right? So that is what this scheme is also all about. It also aims to promote EVs to reduce the environmental impact. Now, how can an EV reduce the environmental impact? Of course, it's a cleaner source of energy, we all get it, but one major challenge in EV is that the battery and the disposal of the battery is a concern. So what do you do about that? You need to create more efficient batteries. Its disposal needs to be proper so as to have less impact on the environment. Now, if you talk about fund allocation, of course you don't have to know the exact number, but around 11,000 is the fund allocation. Time period is important, 2024 to 26. Nodal ministry is very important, that is Ministry of Heavy Industries. Now, going ahead. Now, there will be certain subsidies that will be provided. You should know under this scheme, subsidies or which is known as demand incentives will be provided for consumers. Whether you are buyers or sellers will be given some sort of incentive when you purchase certain categories of EVs. So if you purchase certain categories of EVs, you will be getting the subsidies. Now, which are the types of EVs that you can purchase? Two-wheeler electric, three-wheeler electric including registered, e-auto rickshaw also, e-ambulance and e-trucks other than emerging EV category other emerging EV categories. So you are going to get benefit in basically all types of it. One thing is missing probably is the EV cars. So cars are not there, but for other things you are definitely getting the benefits. Now next up is financialization. Now what is financialization? See, what happens is when you have some amount of saving, you may invest. Earlier what used to happen, you would invest in land, you would invest in gold. So these were the traditional investment instruments. Now what is happening is, instead of investing in these traditional investment instruments, people are investing in something else. What is that something else? That something else is, for example, your shares, bonds, debentures, so on and so forth. So when you are investing in these kind of things, instead of the traditional investment instruments, it is said that there is more financialization of the savings or the investment which is happening. So there have been a concern that is shown by various corners of the country, saying that in India there is too much of financialization that is happening. So you should know the meaning of the word financialization. What it is? It's a process whereby financial markets, financial institutions, financial elites gain greater influence over economic policy and economic outcomes. Means what? You are investing in that, you are creating money out of that. So sort of government policies etc. for traditional investments and this and that fails to an extent. Not fails completely, but here it is more and more. And because you are investing in shares, debentures, bonds more and more, who are the beneficiaries you are here? The financial markets, the financial institutions, the financial elites. Since these are the people who at the end of the day are going to benefit, what happens? These are already rich people who are going to get richer, and the poor people are going to get poorer, or middle income will fall under the below poverty line, so on and so forth. So that is a concern which is shown in this, and what we should know here is the concept of financialization. Now what are the instruments that I talked about? Traditional instruments, real estate, gold, even silver for example, even land were the traditional instruments previously. Now coming back to the next topic, that is the Bhaskar initiative for startup ecosystem. So what is this Bhaskar initiative for the startup ecosystem? It is under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. In this, what is going to happen is, this is basically a platform, a repository platform, wherein you will have the repository of all the startups that are present, all the information, right? So it will be what? A Bharat Startup Knowledge Access Repository. Bharat Startup Knowledge Access Repository is what Bhaskar is. It is coming under one, again another important thing is that it will be coming under the Startup India scheme. So it will be a part of the Startup India scheme, and under which ministry? Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now, one thing we should know is, because presently one term that is quite misused is the term startup. Every other person who might be in business for so many years also may call themselves a startup, but are they really startup? Let us have a look at with respect to the definition of startup. So what is startup? Any entity can be considered a startup. Of course, few reasons. The very first criteria is up to 10 years from the date of its incorporation. So it should be not older than 10 years from its date of incorporation. That is one point. Second, it should be incorporated as private limited company or registered as partnership firm or LLP, that is limited liability partnership. Either of the three ways it has to be established, and its turnover should be less than 100 crores, means the entire revenue, we are not talking about the profit, the entire revenue should be less than 100 crores in any of the previous financial year. Let's say you start a business, in the first year itself you make more than 100 crore of revenue, you are no longer a startup. Till 10 years you do not, you are still a startup, but the moment the 11th year starts, you are no longer a startup. I hope that is clear. Next is Unified Lending Interface. So what is this Unified Lending Interface? We have UPI, Unified Payment Interface. This is ULI, Unified Lending Interface. So it is going to enable frictionless credit will be provided through the Unified Lending Interface. I hope that's clear. That it provides seamless and consent-based flow of digital information, including land records of various states from multiple data services. Now, what is land? What does land record have to do with a lending platform? That is because the loans can be collateral loans. Now, collateral loans will require collateral. Mortgage loans, of course, collateral loans. So, what can be the collateral? Land can be the collateral. So, if I have to keep land as a mortgage and get a loan, for example, the documents, if it's digitized, if it is present, right? So, the source flow of this digital information about the document of the land that I own, if that is done so easily, then I can get the credit also easily. So it is a platform to lend credit to people along with presence of all the information of land records, etc., which play a very important role in provision of the credit. Next is very important, perpetual bonds. Perpetual bonds. So what are perpetual bonds? See, first things first, bonds are debt instruments. Means if you want to borrow money, you can issue bonds and borrow money. The government also does that, right? Now, in bonds, what happens? You get two things. One is the principal, second is the interest. The interest generally is called as the coupon rate or coupon for the bonds. So, you get the principal and the bond. And there is a maturity period of a bond generally. For example, in gold bond scheme, the gold bond had a maturity of 8 years. Now, in perpetual bond, what happens is, see, understand the meaning of perpetual. Perpetual means never ending, forever. That's what perpetual means. So, these perpetual bonds are forever, never ending. In this, however, what happens is, once you have this bond will have no maturity period whatsoever. At the same time, this bond is not going to return your principal amount. Then what is the use? The use is that this bond is going to give you the coupon or the interest forever. Till the time it is there, you will keep on earning coupon on it. Right? However, there is one provision that you can trade this bond on a secondary market. When you trade this bond on a secondary market, you can get back your principal amount, but then since this bond is transferred to someone else, now that someone else will start getting coupon or interest, as I said, on this bond forever and forever and forever. But you will never get the principal back unless and until you are selling it on the secondary platform. The only way to get the principal amount also, because that is not actually the principal amount, it is the amount at which you are selling that bond, it is that amount. So basically understand, the perpetual bonds are the bonds in which there is no maturity period, you don't get the principal amount, you keep on getting the coupon on that bond forever. That is the concept of perpetual bonds. And of course you can sell it in the secondary market. Next is a very interesting thing, that is windfall tax. What is windfall tax? Let's say you start a business and you might have thought of making a profit of 5, 10%, 20%, so on and so forth. But all of a sudden, due to certain external reason which were not in your control, which has nothing to do with your knowledge, your expertise, your skill, your analysis or anything related to you, but rather an external reason, then what happens is, and because of such external factor you have made a humongous amount of profit, then what will happen is the government will charge a tax on you which is known as windfall tax. It is charged when you make a huge amount of profit, percentage wise you make a huge amount of profit without much of your involvement, because of the reasons which are external to you and not related to you, not in your control, not because of you, then you are charged the windfall tax. Now why it is in news? It's in news because the center has reduced the windfall tax on domestically produced crude oil. Now why windfall tax on crude oil? Because domestically produced crude oil. Now India cannot impact the global economy a lot. You as a single producer may not be able to impact. There is no analysis, nothing over there, no skill involved. But the global reasons, issues, challenges or lack of it at times can suddenly increase the prices of crude oil. At that point of time, you would gain a lot of profit. But did it happen? It had anything to do with you? Of course not. That's why the windfall tax. However, the counter to this is, what if due to external forces my business fell down? Will the government give me money? That can be the question. But this kind of discussion will be there in mains examination. Here you just have to remember the concept of windfall tax. Now let's come on to the SPICE scheme. Now SPICE scheme, again we have seen in the last decade or so, the name of the schemes are acronyms and there is a long form for that. So what is this SPICE scheme? Is sustainability in spice sector through progressive, innovative and collaborative interventions for export development, that is SPICE. It will be implemented of course by the Spices Board of India, and it is under the aegis of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. This is what the SPICE scheme is all about. Now the most important thing probably under the SPICE scheme is, what particular spice is it talking about? Is it talking about a particular spice or not? Yes, it is. Later on it may have various other things in it, but right now it is starting with respect to cardamom. So its aim is to expand the area under cardamom and increase productivity of small and large cardamom. Okay? So expand the area as well as increase the productivity. So the overall production is bound to increase, of course, if you are able to do that. Now, what is the Spices Board of India? Spices Board of India constituted in 1987 under the Spices Board Act 1986. Since it was established under the Spices Board Act of 1986, means what? It means that it is statutory body. It is a statutory body. Any body that is backed by an act is a statutory body. Ministry, which ministry? Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So this scheme is also under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now UPSC can trick you by saying that SPICE scheme is under the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. So that is a very good option to confuse you. So do not be confused. Specifically remember those schemes and those ministries of those schemes which do not go well with each other. Certain schemes and ministry go hand in hand, you automatically can say this, but certain which do not or may be confusing, you should specifically remember that, so that the others you can guess it by logic. That is the method you should follow in remembering. Now what is the role? Of course it is an autonomous body. For what? Responsible for export promotion of 52 scheduled spices and development of cardamom, small and large. Now spices, where the reason, as they say, as to why Europeans had come in, they used to trade with in spices, take spices from India, and ironically they themselves don't use much spices in their own food. Of course they were trading, they were taking from here and selling off elsewhere, so on and so forth. So this is all about the current affairs of September 2024, the important current affairs with respect to Indian economy. The small things that we saw, financialization, etc., you should know what they are. There can be possible questions from them. Now let's look at a PYQ on one of the schemes, I believe. Yes. So with reference to the Stand Up India scheme. Why I'm taking the Stand Up India scheme? Because you should know, we just talked about the Bhaskar initiative, a part of Stand Up India program. Now, as per that scheme, which of the following statements, as per Stand Up India scheme, which of the following statements are correct? So let us have a look. Statement 1, its purpose is to promote entrepreneurship among SCs, STs and women entrepreneurs. Yes, there is reservation also. It provides for refinance through SIDBI. Yes, this is also correct. What is SIDBI? SIDBI is Small Industrial Development Bank of India is SIDBI. So this is correct. When this is correct, this goes out, this goes out. Now second is also correct. So the only option is C, both 1 and 2. Now, question on the similar lines can be, consider the following statements with respect to Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, PMJDY, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. The primary objective is to ensure comprehensive financial inclusion by providing access to banking services to every household in India. Absolutely yes, every household in India. So, the first statement is correct. Can we eliminate something? The option says how many of these statements given above are correct? Only 1, only 2, only 3, only 4, or all 4. Now all the options remain. Just by knowing this, we cannot eliminate any option. Statement 2, only savings accounts can be opened under PMJDY. Wrong. So 2 is wrong. So when 2 is wrong, what option can be eliminated? Not much, just this option will be eliminated. Number 3, there is no requirement for minimum balance. Yes. As I said, under Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, zero bank balance account were also opened. Zero balance accounts were also opened. So this is, there is no requirement for a minimum balance. Yes, this is correct. That means 2 statements are correct. 1 is wrong, 2 are correct. So more than 1 is correct. So this option also goes out. Now we are left with these 2 options. Now let's see what happens with the final statement. So when the options are like this, you can have a look. You need to actually know all the statements, or else even till the very last statement, at least 2 options will still remain. Now this kind of questions, this nature of question, UPSC started giving from the year 2023, wherein 40 plus questions were like this. So very difficult to, let's say, guess. But then in 2024, the number of such type of questions were reduced to, I think, 16, 17 or 18 around. So it was less than half of that, wherein guessing was sort of brought back to an extent. Let's see what UPSC does in 2025. But in this type of question, all options you have to know. Fourth is, RBI is responsible for implementing PMJDY. No, RBI is not responsible for it. RBI is not going to implement this kind of financial inclusion scheme, this, that. So of course this is not correct. So this goes out. Only correct answer is, the correct answer is B, only 2, as only 2 statements are correct. Right. So we know what kind of questions are being asked. Hence, when you read and revise the current affairs, focus on those kinds of concepts, facts and logics. So stay tuned with Legacy IAS Academy YouTube channel. We'll be back with the next month of Indian economy current affairs, and that of all the other subjects for your revision for prelims 2025. Thank you.